Hey, do you want to build a stronger family, create a better life? Well, that's what Divorce with Heart is all about. It's a show where I guide you along your divorce and co-parenting journey using the heart's wisdom, intuition, and legal expertise. So sit back, take a deep breath, relax. My name is Gina DiPrima. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. How's everyone doing? I hope very well. I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. I have a great show planned for you today because I have a super special guest with me. Her name is Lorraine Rise, and that might sound familiar to you because she's also the co-host here on Inflow Radio. So here we are. It's episode 23, and we're going to be talking about re-entering the workforce, becoming employable, skills that you need, all that sort of good stuff that some people really need to know when they're going through the divorce process, and especially for after, because I know a lot of you have been stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, or maybe working part-time and fortunate enough to not have to work too much because maybe your spouse was the supporter. So I know that these concerns and we'll just call it fears, they come up a lot in the context of divorce. So that's why I am so excited to bring to you today, Lorraine. In case you don't know much about Lorraine, I'll just go through her bio here quick. Lorraine has built her career on the practice of coaching others to succeed. First, she was helping others in the weight loss industry, where she just coached hundreds of clients there to meet their weight loss goals. Then she became a trainer for Jenny Craig, and she trained and she mentored dozens and dozens of employees in the areas of sales, customer service, and management. In 2013, Lorraine had her own employment setback, and she was laid off. But that didn't stop her, of course. She took that as an opportunity, and she took it as an opportunity to change the course of her career, and she went into human resources. And boy, are we glad that she did, because she's now the founder of WorkSmart Career Counseling, where she helps hundreds of people, job seekers out there, try to write their resumes and do the proper job search, and just helping them in any way that she can so that they can succeed in landing that dream job. Now, WorkSmart is in the Washington, D.C. metro area, but of course, Lorraine can serve clients all over the United States. So if you're listening and you're thinking that that could be a barrier, it's definitely not. Lorraine has a ton of experience. She's helped clients in over 30 industries, and many of them are from the most recognizable firms in the country, like Microsoft, Fannie Mae, PNC Bank, all those big top dogs. So she knows her stuff, and we're super lucky to have her here today. So without any further ado, Lorraine, are you with us?
I am. Thank you for having me, Gina. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Did I miss anything in your bio, or anything you want to elaborate on for our listeners?
No, I think you did a great job. Thank you, Gina, for that nice intro. And I will say I'm a big fan of your show, and I mean that genuinely. I've listened to a lot of episodes. Really, when you first launched, I think that you give so much more than just divorce advice. It's life, I love, really, it's just relationships. Yeah. It is a lot of what we talk about in transition. So we have that in common. We kind of work with people in transition. But no, my show is Career Uprising. So if people recognize me or don't and want to know about my show, it's called Career Uprising. But no, I think you nailed it. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Well, I wanted to really have you talk about this, this position where people find themselves in. A lot of times, I'm just going to say it, a lot of times it is the woman, it is the wife that finds herself, after having been married, maybe 17 years, could be 5 years, who knows? But it's oftentimes a woman who kind of sacrificed that whole career path idea, the education idea, and, chose instead to stay at home, raise the kids, be supportive of her husband, and take on those roles instead of working. And so, what happens when she's in the midst of a divorce and when the marriage is coming to an end, there's all this fear and anxiety about how she's going to support herself. Where does she start to look for a job, having been out of the workforce for so long. So I'm hoping that we can, really explore that topic today. And, with that in mind, maybe you can just tell us what your advice is. What can her first steps be to get started on that kind of a job search?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a daunting process really for anybody, but especially when, you've been out of the so-called traditional workforce, even though you've been working in a capacity for sure as a mom and a wife and that type of thing. So yeah, I think the first step whenever anyone is going through a change or a transition is to determine what is it that you want to do. And it seems like such a simple question, but it's one of the hardest sometimes for people to answer because, especially I would think as, a mom who's been taking care of kids and been at home all these years, you've been working hard, but you haven't been working in a professional sense. So you don't necessarily think of yourself that way. You don't think of your skill set in a professional sense sometimes, but you have all of those things. So it can be really hard to know, okay, well, if I do go back into the workforce, here's what I'm going to do. Maybe you have that clarity, but a lot of people might not. Maybe they thought never expected they were going to have to go back into the workforce. So they haven't really asked that question of themselves. So your first step in any transition or job search is to really ask yourself, what am I interested in? What do I want to do? And what would serve me right now? And one kind of tool or I guess technique that I coach my clients on is a little acronym I made up, ISP, okay? Your interests, your strengths, and your priorities. And I always tell people to get clear on what those are, write them down if you need to. So your interests is just what do you like? What would be enjoyable for you? Your strengths is what am I good at? What are my skills that I want to be using every day? And P is your priorities. So what matters most to you? And if you are a mom going back into the workforce, maybe working around your kids' schedules is a priority. Maybe that really matters. You have certain constraints there, and this job needs to work within that. Or location. Maybe you can't relocate because your kids are here and you're co-parenting with someone nearby. So it has to be local. So that's what priorities is what matters most to me. Salary, location, schedule, that type of thing. So I think the first step for someone returning to the workforce is go through that exercise, the ISP, my interest, my strength, and my priorities, and write it down if you need to, and get clarity on what you think you want to do getting back into the workforce. Do you want to do something administrative or in education? What would that look like for you? And what kind of skills do you want to be using so you know what job you want to try and pursue and go into? So I think inner clarity is always the first step. And maybe that's not what people would expect me to say. A lot of times people expect me to say, get a resume going and all that type. Yes, you're going to need that. But I always back people up even earlier in the process and that's the coach in me, I guess, saying before we get any of those things going, those are more surface level. I want you to get clear on what you want to do and why you're doing it and what direction you want to go in. Does that make sense? That's
absolutely.
Where I would start with somebody. That's always where they think the starting point is further down the line. I'm like, no.
Right.
It's internal is your starting point.
Yes. Well, that makes perfect sense. But I got to ask, and I can't help but think that this has probably happened to you once before. But then what do you do if the person just says, I just don't know. I don't know what I'm interested in. I mean, it's been 15 years and, I raised my babies and I'm home and I've never done a thing. I haven't been out there, then what? How can you help them?
Yes. I had a feeling you probably would ask that. And a lot of people are probably thinking that as well, because it is not that simple. So I would say there are a couple of tools and resources out there that I help clients with, and they don't even have to have me necessarily. I'm going to share in just a moment one free resource that anyone can go on to do some career exploration and get an idea and do some research on career paths. But I would say the first thing is write down what are the skills that you like to use. And so think about the experience that you do have, even when you were out of the workforce. For example, did you volunteer? All right. Did you do PTA? Did you run a Girl Scout troop? Did you volunteer at a library? Did you do anything volunteer-wise or at church or with your kids' activities that used skills? So time management, project management, scheduling, even supervising other people. Sometimes we do that in volunteer positions and school activities, things like that. So think about what you have done during this time frame and identify what skills you've been using and what did you enjoy? Did you enjoy being on the board of the PTA if you did that? Or did you enjoy a certain maybe volunteer activity or maybe you did a fundraising project, something. I know this because this is what moms do. I mean, they're busy with a lot of this stuff. So think about what activities you did, what skills you used, were you good at it? Did you enjoy it? And I guarantee you, there are careers using those skills without a doubt. But if you're still a little bit unsure, which is normal, what I would say is there is a website out there that I love, and it's called ONET. O stands for occupation. Okay. So I think the actual URL, it's a little weird. It's onetonline.org. And maybe we can put this in the Facebook group or in some show notes somewhere if someone wants to go there. But if you just do a Google search for the letter O, net, it will come up. What this is the Department of Labor has created this website, very user-friendly, and it's a database of every career out there and what skills you need, what education, what the salary looks like. You can browse, you can do searches. I love this website, but I'm a geek about these things. So of course I do. But it's a free, fantastic tool for anyone who is exploring career paths, isn't sure what skills or education they need to get into a certain field, or how much does it pay? What are the working conditions like? Anything like that. And there is also a free tool on that website I think it's called the Interest Profiler, but it's a little career assessment. It's a quick little quiz that you take. It takes about 10 minutes, and it will give you some suggested career paths based on your personality and your strengths. It's very simplified, but it's free, and it's a great way to get started. If you are like, I don't know what career kind of cluster or I want to go in, it's going to give you some great suggestions. I've taken it myself. Go figure. It told me I should be like a coach or a trainer. Or something like that. So
it's pretty accurate,
It's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah, that's great.
I love those things like that. And I was like, oh, this is really like me. This is what I'm doing. So it's a great, fun tool, but it's very informative. So that's a great place to go if you just need a little bit of direction of, okay, what should I explore further? Go to ONET, to onetonline.org, and take their little career profiler. Great tool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to post that. Are you saying ONET online.org? Okay, great. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that I had that and for anybody listening. And also, by the way, I didn't announce it at the top of the hour here, but we are live today. So if you were able to join us here live, please give us a call. Lorraine's here to answer your questions. I'm here. That number again is 760-456-7277. So, okay. Back to you, Lorraine. So that is such a great place to start. And I think also just one thing that I've noticed is overlooked a lot, and it's just a basic question when you're talking about or looking at, what are you interested in? It's, how do you feel about people, working with people or not working with people? I think sometimes that just gets skipped over,
Yeah.
But I say it because I know that there's a lot of people that might have, various skill sets, et cetera, and demands on them. But at the end of the day, they'd prefer to work alone, which is fine, right? But that's just something really good to know about yourself. I just wanted to bring that up too, I guess. So
yes, a lot of people think that they're a people person and they're not. Sometimes they don't always know what that means. So absolutely. You want to think, do I want to work somewhere where I'm highly visible and I'm talking to people and I'm engaging with them? Yeah. Or am I more of an individual contributor? Do I want to work with technology and more behind the scenes? That's a great, just simple way to kind of rule out a couple of jobs right there.
Yeah. And nowadays there's so much that you can do too, right? Online, just for other people, even just freelancing. Cause I know that I've hired people that way. Right. But, I know I've used Fiverr. I'm sure you're probably familiar with some other sites like that.
Yeah. Right? There is another one called, FlexJobs. I think it's flexjobs.net or .com. I'm not sure, what but FlexJobs is one. And what that is it's all remote work from home. So if that's a hindrance, if you really need something with scheduling flexibility and you are the kind of person who can work from home, there's a lot of jobs now that are completely remote, virtual assistants, jobs that didn't even exist years ago. Social media, really. Social media, posting and marketing and virtual assistants. These are great careers for women because they're so flexible and you can often do them from home. And they take, administrative, writing, communication skills, things that a lot of women naturally tend to be good at. So those are some avenues to explore as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, those are some things that I need to look at to help myself in my business.
Right,
so if you're listening,
you want to be Gina's personal virtual assistant.
Yep, send me a message.
Yeah.
So what do you think is best, or what are some tips that you can throw out there and suggest for women when they are trying to address their absence from the workforce, particularly when they're writing their resume and they just may not have a lot of information to fill that space? So what would you suggest there?
Yeah, a couple of things. So think about anything that you have to showcase your skills, even if it is not, traditional work. So any volunteer work that you did at school, at church, in Scouts, anything like that. And I want you to compile that and think about what skills you used, what specific projects and outcomes you have. Perhaps maybe you did led a fundraiser at your school. So you could write a bullet point on your resume, led a fundraising effort that brought in X number of dollars in 6 weeks for the elementary school or something like that. You can I absolutely want you to put any extra experience you have. You can think, of course, outside of traditional employment. So volunteer work is one, school, church projects, things like that, or, and anything that you did part-time. So a lot of people maybe did part-time, even if it was just temporary. And you don't necessarily have to put that the work was part-time on your resume. If you did the work, you did the work. You don't necessarily, I see that a lot. For some reason, a lot of people note that it's part-time. That doesn't matter. I just want you to put that experience, if you have it, on there. So think outside traditional work. Think about whatever volunteer, other projects that you may have done. And the other thing too, that I want to say about anytime someone has any kind of gap on their resume, whatever the reason, whether you took time off to take care of an elderly parent, take care of your kids, just do personal travel, or maybe you were just, or even maybe if you were just unemployed, but you want to address that gap. Okay. So the only time I say to clients, the only time a gap on your resume is truly fatal is when you don't explain it. You don't want them to wonder, okay, what have you been doing for the last 6 or 7 years? Have you been unemployed? Have you been in jail? Where have you been? You want to always explain the gap. So for a stay-at-home mom going back into the workforce, that's very simple and that's very straightforward. Simply put underneath the professional experience or work history, put, personal leave of absence, stayed home to raise kids, and then how many years. Put it on there, just a simple listing, because it's so explainable and it's the truth and it's so normal. Many employers are they know what that means. They know what you did. So put it on there. That way they know, and they won't have to ask you, what were you doing during, that time? And it won't look like you were just unemployed. It was an intentional time off. So that's kind of my soapbox with that kind of thing. I always tell people, put whatever this leave of absence from the workforce is on there. Address it on the document, because then their minds won't wander. You don't want the employer's mind to wander and wonder what that was. So that's really important. And then put anything that you can think of, any skills or experiences that you have, even if they weren't from the workforce, that use those skills that you want to use. And they're there. They're nearly always there. But that's a good starting point. And you know what? If you have a one-page resume because you don't have a lot of work history, that is okay. A one-page resume is great and is appropriate for a lot of people. So please don't feel like you have to have this big, long, like 2 or 3 pager. Nobody really reads those anyway. So it's okay to keep it concise. That's absolutely, and it's okay to state what that you're a former stay-at-home mom returning to the workforce. That's your situation. That's what it is. So be honest and be authentic about it.
So what if though you stayed home, not because you had children, but the reality is that, your spouse made more than enough money to support the both of you, maybe actually had a request that you not go out into the workforce. And I mean, quite frankly, you just didn't need to work.
Right. Right.
So I just wonder, what would you say in that case?
Yeah. So in that case, again, you might want to just put maybe in like a little career summary. I oftentimes at the top of a resume, I put a little short paragraph of kind of not really an objective statement, but similar, kind of what they're wanting to do. So you can put a line up in there about, simply returning to the workforce for a, position in such and such field. You don't necessarily have to say that it was to stay home and take care of your kids or anything like that, but you just want them to know that this was an intentional time off. You could call it a personal leave of absence or a sabbatical, something like that, if you wanted to. But be authentic is the bottom line about it.
So put something down, somewhat creative, so their mind's not wondering, thinking that, right away, well, this person must have been in jail for the last 5 years or whatever,
so
right?
Just something about, I took time off from the workforce, but now I'm ready to excited to get back into it. That's it. Yeah. It can be very simple.
And what do you say, because I know that there's some people who do things like they're the room mom or the team mom. And so I can imagine that it's a little more difficult for them to think about kind of like quantifiable results, because it's a little less maybe project oriented, but there's a lot of organization, right? So what would you say about that?
Well, sure. So not everything is going to be, a lot of people, even in the workforce, have that problem. Not every achievement or accomplishment they have is quantifiable. There is not a number for everything. But what I typically tell people is that everyone influences a project or a business or a school, whatever it may be, in some way. And it's usually money, people, time, or quality. It's going to likely fall into one of those categories. So money, you either saved money or made money for them through, sales, or maybe, you saved money somehow. People, did you supervise people? Did you train people? Did you hire people? Anything like that. Time, did you improve a process that saved the organization, whatever it may be, a lot of time? And then quality, did you do any kind of quality assurance? And, that can even be proofreading or, something like that. So there's a lot of different ways, but it's usually money, people, time, or quality. So you can apply that to volunteer work and other projects because it's going to be the same thing. But that's how you find what is the outcome, what is the achievement, or what is the value I brought to this process. It's going to be through money, people, time, or quality.
Oh, I just love that. I love that because it's simple, it's concise, and the truth is a lot of us, we underestimate our value. But if you can just go through that like a checklist, it's really providing the direction of what you need to consider. So I love that. That's so nice. And I think we just skipped over it, but obviously we talked about what the first step was. And I'm assuming then after that, your second step is to start working on the resume, right? Because we sort of just jumped into talking about the resume. And I know that that's one of your specialties. In fact, you're certified as a professional resume writer. So that's pretty cool. Do you think Well, let's just talk about that. Maybe some more basics on the resume writing and how do people know if they should hire a professional resume writer or things like that. Let's talk about the resume.
Yeah, I think I'll say this, one of the biggest mistakes or perhaps pieces of really bad advice, I think, that I see out there that is given to stay-at-home parents is to, you should make up all these titles and call yourself a chief domestic officer and say that I'm serious. I'm not, you Google it. You will find terrible advice out there saying that you should make up crazy job titles and make it look like you held a job. And if you drove your kids places, you were a chauffeur and all this stuff. And it's just terrible advice. So what I want to say is, again, be honest and be authentic. You don't have to play games and make up a title for yourself because people will see through that and you're actually going to hurt your credibility if you do it. It's just not necessary. So I
probably won't even get the interview, right?
No, probably not. Yeah. Because like I said, people understand, if you took time off for family, even if it wasn't raising your kids, if you just, took time off because you didn't need or want to work, people do that. I have to tell you, it's more normal than people think it is. So many people have time off from their resume for one reason or another. So I just want to normalize it, especially with women. It's not that uncommon to see it. So you don't need to dress it up into something else. So I think that's the biggest thing is just be concise, be simple, be honest, be authentic, put what you have, put the volunteer work or any part-time work or any special projects that you helped with. And, I would say too, if you're having a hard time coming up with ideas, ask somebody else. Because we're never objective about ourselves. Ask your neighbors or your friends or your spouse, maybe not your spouse, you're getting divorced, maybe somebody else. What am I good at? What are my strengths? What are some things that you can think of, maybe that I have done and helped with? Because you'd be surprised. Other people may recognize things about you that you don't, that you can put on your resume. I have seen that happen a lot. So I think that would be another starting point. But yeah, certainly you can work with someone like myself and work with a resume writer. And that's really great, especially if you don't have the time, you're not confident in your writing ability, or, you're trying, but you're not getting any results, anything like that. Because again, a coach or somebody can come in and offer you advice and seeing what other people have done, what has worked for other people. And oftentimes that even doing some of those little online assessments and things like that can give you a good sense of some of your best soft skills and things like that you can put on a resume as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of get help with it or approach it. But yeah, I love helping people with that. But oftentimes it's just a matter of you sometimes just sitting down and getting honest with yourself about what are my skills, what do I love to do, and what matters most to me. And that's where it's going to come from.
How about in terms of format? Is there any one kind of general format that's just a little more generally accepted? And what I mean is, and it's been a long time for me since I've had to put together a resume, but I do remember like back in the day, there were a few different ways of doing it. One was the traditional, what's your objective or your mission statement, listing all your education, then listing all your prior employment. And I wonder, does that kind of still hold true? Or can you drop off the education piece, especially, maybe you're a person that didn't go on to college and you're talking about high school and that was more than 10 years ago. I just wonder in terms of that, is there one kind of standard format that's a little more preferred by employers?
Yes.
Or does it,
yes, there is actually. So what you have is the traditional chronological resume. Okay. So that's what most people know. So it's kind of reverse chronological order, listing out, the most recent job and then going older. There are other resume formats out there. Some people are not familiar with this terminology, but it's called a functional resume or a skills-based resume. And what that does is it basically pulls all the bullet points and information out from the individual jobs and puts them under skill headings, and then kind of puts the employment history at the bottom. And the problem with that is you don't know what the employer doesn't know what you did at what place or at what job. And it gets a little wonky. And I always tell clients, hiring managers prefer that regular chronological resume. They just do. I have not had to write a functional resume for a single client yet. And I've helped over 200 people. I have not used that, but it's out there.
That says a lot.
Yeah. I just don't think it's necessary, and it's not preferred by hiring managers. So stick with what works. Stick with just that reverse chronological order. Education can go at the bottom, unless I would say you are light on experience, but you have the degree. Then maybe lead with that. Kind of lead with whatever you have most to show forth. But if somebody has the experience, I say you can put the education at the bottom. And I would say stick with 1 to 2 pages. Anything beyond that is not necessary. But really where things are going to, and I will just make a quick mention too, is for LinkedIn. I would imagine a lot of people who, a lot of women maybe who stayed home for a number of years probably don't even have a LinkedIn profile. They didn't need one. So that's a great way to kind of get into the modern job market and the modern job search process. Not every industry necessarily has to have one, but most stand to benefit. So it's not just the paper resume, get your online presence going and start building your network through LinkedIn and adding your connections. And that's a whole nother topic right there. But I think that's a big step for someone who's been out of the game for a while. A lot of it's on LinkedIn. A lot of the recruiting is, and the networking and that type of thing. So there's a lot of benefits there. So I just want to make a mention to that. Going beyond the paper resume is to really get into the social networking and professional networks that way as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we're about halfway through, so I think we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll just continue talking about this, and we'll explore maybe a little more of LinkedIn and what women can do, once they have that wonderful resume and all sorts of stuff. And again, we're live, so if you're able to listen, give us a call. I'm with Lorraine Rise. The number is 760-456-7277. And we'll be right back. Hi, it's Gina here. Did you know that every week I meet with a group of people just like you who are struggling with the pain of divorce? I help them to feel good about themselves again, make better choices, overcome their fears. I call it divorce intelligence. And you know what? It doesn't matter where you are or what stage of the process you're in. It could be before, during, or even after, because we meet online. It's super simple. All that fighting, the crazy legal fees, the constant anger, the frustration, it's not mandatory. You don't have to struggle through this alone, and you don't have to question if you're doing the right thing. There's a better way, and I know it works. Every week in my group, I draw on my legal experience and conscious uncoupling processes to help guide you through the process. And you know what else? I tap into the spiritual realm. I bring ancient healing techniques and soul-level guidance to you so you can experience deep, everlasting change. So if you're ready to heal and save yourself some time, money, and years of frustration, not just for you, but for your kids too, then give me a call and join Divorce Intelligence. It's a totally free call. All you have to do is go to doorwaytoheal.com. That's doorwaytoheal.com. I know you deserve a life of peace and happiness. So if you're ready to really divorce with heart, give me a call. Let's work together. Some of you have questions about your partnership, marriage, or co-parenting situation. I'm here for you. Give me a call in today's live episode by dialing the U.S. number 1-760-456-7277. That's 1-760-456-7277. Talk to you soon. All right, and here we are. We're with Lorraine Rise, and we are getting some really excellent career advice today. And just before the break, Lorraine started to take us into the world of LinkedIn. And so I want to pick up there. You know, what are some things that the person can do once they have this beautiful resume? What can they do with it to find opportunities and to connect with potential employers? So now they've got their resume, they know what they're interested in, what their skills are, they know all that. What's next?
Yeah, I think next is finding out how can I actually now get in front of the employer and get this resume read and start getting interviews. So at this point, visibility is the name of the game. And that's true for every job seeker out there. So a lot of people find that LinkedIn is a great way to gain that visibility because there are so many employers out there actively using LinkedIn every day to recruit new people, to post their job openings and that type of thing. So I think when you take a long-term view of, somebody or, a woman or anybody who's been out of the workforce getting back into it, LinkedIn in the long term can offer a lot of benefits because you can build up your network. You can start conversations with new people. I also say too, I love to tell people to go look at the profiles of complete strangers who are doing work they want to be doing. And the reason I tell them to go creep other people's profiles is because you can learn. I'm like, it's on the internet. It's the free. It's available. It's not stalking, right? So go there and I want you to look at how they brand themselves. How did they get in that position? What do they write about themselves? What skills do they have? You're kind of doing competitive intelligence a little bit and seeing what other people look like in this job that you want to be in. I mean, you have the profiles of 450 million people. That's how many people are on LinkedIn. You take advantage of that and look at how other people position themselves for this career you want. And you can even reach out to people and find a mentor. LinkedIn actually even has a career guidance feature where you can get career guidance and mentorship from other people who are in a line of work that you are interested in. And that's just scratching the surface of what LinkedIn can do for somebody short and long term. So if you're not there yet and you're getting back into the workforce, start a LinkedIn profile, start adding connections, have something is better than nothing. And just kind of take it as part of your long-term strategy in your career. Now that you're going to be in the corporate world or in the working world, LinkedIn will hold a lot more relevance for you than it did when you were staying home. So, but I would say some other ways that women things that they can think about in terms of connecting with employers. From personal experience, I have had great experiences with staffing agencies. I've been placed twice in my career by staffing agencies. Once when I was unemployed, I was in between jobs. So a staffing agency is kind of the middleman. So they represent you and present you to the employer, and they have access to thousands of jobs, many of which are intentionally not posted online. So that's that hidden job market, right? So, and staffing agencies are free. They are free for you as the job seeker. And that's because they work for the employer. I won't go too far into that arrangement, but it's free for you as the job seeker. You can register one. You can have a face-to-face meeting so they get to know you, what you're looking for, and they can give you a lot of resume guidance and actually place you in both temporary and permanent jobs that they have access to. So consider just do a Google search for, staffing agencies in Philadelphia or wherever you may be at, and they will come up. So that is something I've used with great success. And then I would say career fairs. Career fairs are not dead, okay? People think they are. I will tell you, here in the Washington, D.C. area where I am, they are not. And they are not just for college students. There are, our Chamber of Commerce here puts on phenomenal career fairs. And they are, again, free for you as the job seeker. You get on-the-spot interviews and resume guidance. Absolutely throw that into your strategy as a way to connect face to face with potential employers and just get back in the game and just get your confidence going again with interviewing. So I would say look at LinkedIn, look at staffing agencies, and look at career fairs. Those are, and then just your network, just asking your network, people you know. Make sure they know you're looking for work. Make sure they know what you're looking for, and they may be able to refer you somewhere or help you get in at a company they have a connection to. So just your personal network as well could be invaluable at this time.
Mm-hmm. And that's really anybody, right? Anybody really that you know, that you feel comfortable enough at least sharing it with, because you never know who that person knows or what creative idea they might be able to come up with. And I wonder, I mean, what about the old school ways too of just going out there and pounding the pavement or, you know, looking in the classifieds? Would you say that nowadays that's kind of just more of a waste of time and stick to these other sort of strategies?
Today's kind of classified, so to speak, I guess, are the online job boards. So what I will say about those is absolutely you can throw that into your strategy, but just don't rely on that alone. That can take a long time because it's very impersonal, and everybody and their best friend and their best friend's brother is applying online through these job boards because they're so easy and accessible. So can you use them? Absolutely. But I want you to only use them in conjunction with doing some of these other strategies that will actually connect you a little bit more directly, like a staffing agency, a career fair, networking. Those are more of a direct, like, here, let me introduce you or refer you. So that's going to be a little bit more effective, but it can take some time to get that going. So job boards are fine, but just don't rely on them too much is what I would say.
Yeah. It sounds like the preference would be to have somewhat of a personal connection. So whether you know somebody who works there or a personal referral, or there's something else that makes it a little more personal and less generic, right? And, you know, with that, after the person's applied or submitted their resume, what then? Should they be following up? And if so, should it be by phone call? Should it be by email? What's your suggestion there? And where would you stop if you were following up? Because we all know we don't want to annoy the potential employer. So
Well, whatever method of contact you have. So if you have their phone, that would be the best. And then email from there. I would say a lot of people follow up with LinkedIn messages, and that's okay, but that has the lowest response rate. If you have either an email or a phone for this person, has been shown time and time again to have a higher response rate, because especially as a recruiter, recruiters get inundated with LinkedIn messages. So they tend to not pay as much attention to them, but they're in their email for work all day anyway. So you might get a better response that way. And I would say one follow-up is good. And if you're not getting responses after that, you have to move on, because you have to think, okay, if someone's not replying to me, is it really worth my time to keep pushing? Probably not. I want you to spend your time with people who do respond to you and who are gonna help you and progress you through. So do your due diligence and do some follow-up, but I would stop after one or two and go pursue somebody or something that is going to reply to you. So
that makes sense. Yeah. And what would you say to the person that really just can't afford to go back to school or just doesn't have the time to go back to school? And so, you know, their education history is somewhat limited. Are there other options, good options out there still for them? And what do you have to?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a big hurdle, I think, for a lot of people, because a lot of people who want to either get back into the workforce or just change careers, I think a big hindrance or perception of one is that, I'm going to have to go back to school and I'm too old to go back to school, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the money. And that's a big commitment. And if you need to, and you can go back to school for a new degree, fabulous. But realistically, not everyone can do that. So what I would say is, and what I have done myself is look into community colleges. So it's not always about the 4-year degree. Look at community colleges and look at what they have in terms of, it's either going to be called usually continuing education or workforce development. Okay. So for example, a couple of years ago when I was laid off from Jenny Craig and I had some time on my hands because I was unemployed, I took that time to freshen up my skills, and I didn't know Microsoft Excel. So I thought, okay, let me see how I can learn that. And I took just an individual course from a local community college. It was only like $100, and it was completely self-paced online at home. And I learned Microsoft Excel. Now you can do more than just one course. There are certification courses and programs that are often exclusively online and much less costly than a full degree. There's a lot of, maybe 3 to 6 month certification programs that you can go through that are much more affordable, and they don't take 4 years. And you can often do it while you're working or looking for work and you've got kids. Believe me, I've been working full time and had a young child at home and got an online degree as well. So there are ways that you can go back to school on a more of a online flexible basis, but also short term. It's not always a full degree. So look at the local universities wherever you live and look at what they have on their website for probably either called continuing education or workforce development. And that is geared towards the adult who is not an undergrad, and they're not necessarily looking for a degree. They're looking for some kind of specialized training or certification. And that can be a great resume builder to add that on, that course. And it can just be a good confidence booster to kind of get back in the game and get engaged by taking some courses. So, so I would go that route, and I've done that personally myself.
Yeah, that's just great advice, Lorraine. It really is. You have so much information to offer.
I know I have a lot. I'm like, gosh, I could keep talking, but we only have like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, we sort of started talking a lot about the woman, and I hate to exclude men, but it just traditionally has been the woman that's been the stay-at-home parent. So doesn't mean that I'm saying that this stuff doesn't apply to a man. But in any event, say that she is a stay-at-home mom and she's trying to get back out there. Do you have any suggestions of how she can focus on some employers or find employers that are more likely to support that kind of work-life balance that she might need?
Yeah, the ever elusive work-life balance. Everybody's chasing that these days, and it's a big buzzword out there because I think that in many ways the workforce is changing to meet that need. More and more people, whether they're moms or not or whoever, are demanding, so to speak, a more flexible way to work. And so the good news is that as a whole, that's where our economy, I think, and our workforce is going, is more and more employers are realizing that there is a better way to work. We have the technology now to bring talent from all over the country, and they don't have to relocate. So what I would say, so that's the good news. I'm just sharing that as the good news, is that it's becoming more commonplace and more flexible as a whole. But what I would say is do a Google search for best employers for women. I know Forbes put a list out of some of the top employers out there for women. So maybe do a Google search for, I think it's like Forbes best employers for women. There are a lot of newspapers, magazines, publications that have compiled lists of employers who are known for being more family friendly, I guess you could say, or more accommodating for flexible work arrangements and just more friendly to women and people or anybody who needs to take care of their family and isn't going to work an 80-hour work week and that type of thing, So these are employers who are known for having that kind of company culture that is more flexible and more accommodating to that. So there's a lot of lists that have been compiled of those types of employers. And I know Forbes is one that has one of those lists. So that could be a great starting point because you could use that list to kind of target maybe some of those employers and look and see if they have any openings. And that could be a place to start.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. We are getting down to the end here. So any last final words or tips for women that are in this stage and for men? I hate that I keep saying women, but it's just that traditionally that's where, the chips have fallen.
That's okay. I think the men can extract what they need from this, right? That's okay.
Yeah, I hope so. So any last final, words or tips that they can take with them? Final takeaways? I think that
two things would be a good takeaway is number one, get help and get advice. You do not have to go through this transition alone. And that's why I do what I do, because I don't want people to feel like they have to go through a job search process alone. It can be an incredibly isolating thing. You're just kind of out there yourself applying for jobs and not hearing back. And it's very disillusioning sometimes. So, and whether you get help from someone like myself, a career coach, or just your network, get your friends and your family, talk to other working moms. I'm sure that, most people know some working moms who have kids and they are balancing it all. Ask them, how do you do it? What advice do you have for me? Where do you work? Do you like your employer? Do they have any openings? Anything like that. Leverage your network for support, for advice. Have them look over your resume. Ask them if they'll practice interviewing with you. There's so many ways that your network can help you and support you during this time, because it's the big life change. I mean, getting a new job is a life change. Getting divorced is a life change. So it's like a double whammy, right? And especially when it's unexpected, maybe you didn't think your life was going to go in this direction. So you're kind of coping with the emotional aspects of it as well, because a job search it's an emotional thing. I mean, people don't really talk about that, but it is. There's a lot of emotions involved in it. So you need support. Whether you get a coach or whether it's your family or friends, please don't go through it alone, because you don't have to. There's so much help out there. And the second thing I would say is just remember that looking for work and going through these transitions, it's a process. You may not, if you don't have a lot of recent work experience, most people understand they're probably not going to be able to get that dream job right off the bat. So take a stepping stone job. Just remember that this is a process. Your goal right now is to get your confidence back up and just get out there into the workforce. Where you land immediately might not be where you stay for more than a year or so. And you know what? That is okay. I tell people all the time, be selfish. Don't worry if you're going to leave this job in a year. If it was a stepping stone and it got you where you need to go after that, and then you're in a better place, do it. This is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. But that's okay. As long as you are making progress and going in the right direction and getting back in the game and getting engaged in it and getting confident again, and going in the right direction, that's what you want. So don't be afraid to just take small steps and just go in the right direction and just understand that this first job you get right out of the gate, it might not be your dream job and it might not pay what you're worth, but it's going to get you where you need to go in a short period of time. And so it doesn't mean you're not on the right path. You are. It's just a process. So
that's such great advice. That's such great advice. And thank you so much for those reminders, because, it's true. I think people get hung up a lot of times. They may get an offer, but it's not really what I wanted. But you're right. Take it. Maybe take it anyways, just to get yourself going, just to get your feet wet, just to, have something else to put on your resume. And who knows who else you're going to meet there, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
The other thing I was thinking when you were saying that too is I think it's also important not to overlook the other people in our lives that may not necessarily fall into the friend or family category, but yet they're certainly more than just somebody you might see a passerby, right? Like maybe you have a hairdresser, or maybe you go get your nails done, or maybe you're dropping your children off every day to a daycare center. I mean, the people that you interact with, with a little more than just the hello, how are you, where you kind of know each other. I mean, don't forget about them, because they know people too. So, and I think it's okay to let as many people know as you possibly can, hey, I'm looking for work. If you hear of anything, let me know. I mean, that's how connections are made, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And I always tell people you have a network. I don't let anyone tell me they don't have a network, because they try and tell me that. I'm like, yes, you do. You know people, unless you've been living, under a rock or in your basement for the past couple of years. You know people. You just never thought about engaging them with you in your job search, but now you need to, and your help is there. Yeah, you're right.
And you know what else? People like to help people. So don't be embarrassed, if you're dropping your children off to daycare and you happen to see the director. I mean, don't be embarrassed to say to the daycare director, I'm looking for work if you happen to hear of anything or something like that, because, that daycare director, she is likely to be someone who likes to help somebody else. We all like to feel like we're needed and we're valued and we did something nice for somebody, right? So
absolutely. I agree.
All the more reason. Don't be embarrassed. Don't hold back. Just put it out there, right? So Lorraine, how can people find you if they want to work with you directly, personally?
Oh, sure. They can go to my website, which is WorkSmartCounseling.com. So WorkSmart Career Counseling is the name of my practice, but I've shortened it a little bit. So just go to www.WorkSmartCounseling.com and all my program options are on there and a way to contact me and everything you need.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Lorraine. I appreciate you being here with us. You're just a wealth of information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Come back next week and be sure to visit my website at dpremalaw.com to book a call, or let's connect on Facebook at dpremalaw, where you can join my group for more support. Please remember that the information shared is for general and entertainment purposes only, and that by calling in or messaging me, we are not creating an attorney-client relationship, and my advice is not intended to be legal advice. For specific legal advice, please contact a lawyer in your jurisdiction.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.